I remember when I started bass fishing, I had no clue about this topic. When I bought line, I bought the cheapest stuff I could find. Well, years down the road, it now makes more sense. And when I'm talking about line choice here, I'm not referring to pound test or the color of the line in this particular video. I'm referring to monofilament, fluorocarbon, and braid. There are great characteristics and not so great characteristics for each one, and when you have them matched up with the right lure, the right presentation, you're going to be a more effective bass angler. Let's go ahead and get started with monofilament. When this first came on the market, it was all the rage because it was definitely a better price point, and it was something different than what anglers had been using before. Well, monofilament has some great characteristics to it, but some not so great ones as well. But depending on the presentation, you can match them up with your technique or lure, and it's going to work great for you. So let's hit those characteristics of monofilament. So number one, mono likes to float, okay? It likes to stay up there on the top of the water or up near the surface. It does not sink very quickly. Number two, monofilament has a ton of stretch, and I mean a ton. If you go ahead and tie it off to a branch or the cleat on your boat and you start to pull, you're going to be shocked how much stretch is in that monofilament. So when can we take those two characteristics, okay, the fact that it's more buoyant, it has a ton of stretch, and use them to our advantage? I like to use them when I'm running lures with treble hooks that are very shallow. So I'm not talking your deep divers, I'm talking your shallow running square bill crankbaits, your wake baits, your topwaters, anything where I've got that treble hook and I want to keep that lure in the top part of the water column. When you use monofilament on those shallow lures, okay, it's going to stay up above maybe some shallow grass or some shallow sticks and stuff better than if you use something, let's say fluorocarbon. And then I also like the monofilament for those very shallow lures with the trebles, because when a fish bites it, when I get that bite, I don't want to yank those trebles away, okay? Trebles are a grabbing type of a hook, not a penetrating type of a hook. So that's how they work most efficiently, is they go ahead and they grab and then hopefully get up to that barb to hold that fish on. But on that initial bite, if you don't have a ton of stretch, you can yank those lures right away from the fish and miss a ton of them. So those are the situations where I like monofilament. All right, let's go to fluorocarbon. It has very different properties than monofilament does. First thing you may notice is, Steve, you're crazy. That fluorocarbon is expensive. I just bought a filler spool the other day of 15-pound, and it was like $26, $27. So what are the situations where I'm going to use that and benefit from it? Well, characteristics of fluorocarbon: it has less stretch. I'm not going to say no stretch. It has less stretch, considerably less than monofilament. Fluorocarbon is also very dense, which means it sinks, okay? It's going to get those lures deeper in the water column easier, and fluorocarbon refracts light differently. It is about as close to invisible as I think you can get. I've done line test videos with how well you can see the line in the water, and in that bright sunlight, okay, you can get up even to 12-pound fluoro, 15-pound fluoro, and you can barely see it, okay? So it is extremely invisible. So what are the lures and presentations I'm going to use? First thing that pops into mind, deep diving crankbaits. This is when I want to get deeper, okay? Fluorocarbon is going to allow me to get that extra depth a little bit farther down, and there's still some stretch with it, but I'm going to make sure I've got it paired with a good crankbait rod, so I've got enough give in that composite rod. Another place for fluorocarbon that I really like is with your finesse presentations, okay? Whether that's I'm putting a fluorocarbon leader on a braid main line or just using straight fluoro, I like it for my finesse presentations, drop shot, Ned rig, these types of things, because that line is so invisible. It's just a great choice. Matter of fact, almost all the leaders that I use fluorocarbon. And the last one is braid, okay? Braid is just one of those lines that I have really fallen in love with. Characteristics: no stretch. Okay, it is no give whatsoever. It is a no stretch situation, and braid is also extremely castable, and braid also has a much smaller diameter than, let's say, monofilament does, so you don't have the weight or the bulk, but you still get the power of a higher rated test line. And braid is also excellent in really thick, heavy cover situations. I think vegetation especially, you can rip that braid on a hook set and it will cut right through vegetation, slice right through it, and you can get the head of those fish turned quickly. So what are the situations I'm going to use braid? Well, let's start off with lures in that heavy vegetation, okay? If I'm punching mats, I'm using hollow body frogs, Texas rigging, or using jigs in thick vegetation. These are all situations where I want the head of that bass to turn and come to me immediately. I don't want the give, okay, that some of the other lines have, where the bass may bury up in that stuff and I have a harder time getting them out. So I love, love, love to have braid in those situations. Now, if I'm fishing in clearer water, okay, I will oftentimes have braid, but then just a little bit of fluoro leader on there, and the fluoro will slide right through that thick cover real nicely. You know, so if I'm fishing brush top piles in extremely clear water, I don't want that braid on there, but yet I've got enough braid where I'm still going to have very, very little stretch. And in a fluoro leader, you're not going to have so much stretch that, you know, you can't get the head of that fish turned and coming towards you. And here's another one for braid that I really love. Braid on spinning reels, in my opinion, is amazing. You can take the tiniest lure, okay, a little Ned rig, put braid on that spinning reel, and it's so castable, you can throw that lure a country mile. You just can't do that with like monofilament on your spinning reel. Now, because it is a finesse presentation, I'm going to have that fluoro leader, but holy cow, man, braid is just so easy to cast on your spinning equipment, eliminates a ton of line twist as well. And hey, if you want to watch a video about the knot that I use to go from that braid main line to a fluorocarbon leader, I like to use the red Phillips knot. Go ahead and check this video out right here. And hey, make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.